This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels, and also home of Jack's Pale Ale.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. It is the tipping podcast for round number 8, a very special round on the calendar. It is the Anzac Round. Now, it is a very special round. Anzac Day is, of course, on Friday, the 25th of April. And it is a celebration and remembering the soldiers that have come before us and that are still defending our country as well, I guess you could say, around the world. And I really appreciate their service that they have done for us and are currently still doing for us. And it is an emotional day. We hear the last post being played out in front of every single game. And look, to be honest, there are times when I hear the last post, a little tear comes to my eye. Simply because I remember my two pops who served in the Defence Forces of Australia, and very proudly, and I really remember them on that day. So it is an emotional day, but it is a celebratory day. And look, I could just imagine what sort of a day it would be for the players that play in games on that day. But no Parramatta this weekend. Parramatta have the bye, so no Anzac Round for them, no Anzac jersey for me and many other fans. But look, you will see across the NRL this weekend some very special designed jerseys to celebrate Anzac Round, which happens every year, obviously. But the clubs, they do a great job in designing their Anzac jerseys. And look, if you want to know all about the jerseys, the Anzac jerseys, or any other jersey for that matter, throughout the year, then make sure you follow Tom at Retro Rugby League. He does an amazing job breaking down all the designs of the jerseys that come through in the off-season, ready for the new season, and these special round jerseys as well. So the Anzac Round jerseys, also the Indigenous jerseys that will come out a little bit later on in the season. Heritage jerseys, if any clubs release those, he will go through them. He does a great job at doing them as well. So look, give him a follow. He's a great bloke. I'm hoping to catch up with him next weekend up there at Magic Round. But he does a great job going through those ones. But anyway, that is a little bit of a story there. Let's get into the tipping now. The tipping podcast brought to you by Assure Strata Reports. Give them a follow on Instagram, and also Buddy Oldman Masters Boxer on Facebook. Give him a follow as well. They are sponsoring the podcast tipping competition, which is currently in its round 8 form. And look, it's getting very tight up there on the leaderboard, actually, to be honest. Not a great deal of changes, but it certainly is getting pretty tight up there. Only 8 rounds down. Jaden Zaid still leads on 39 points, but there is also a couple of others on 39 as well. It's just for and against that is keeping Jaden Zaid up in the lead there. Bluffler Pluke is on 39 points as well. The big mover of the weekend was Diggs _96, Amanda WW in 5th, Zetna 275 in 6th. Footy Time Vault, great bloke, follow him on Instagram as well. He goes through all the old times of rugby league, brings back some great memories. In 7th, G'day Rick is in number 8th spot. So it is very tight there. 36 points. G'day Rick is on. That is 8th spot. So the leader is on 39. So very close there. So good times in the tipping competition. So as I said, you can follow my tips, or you can follow Ella's tips. Now, Ella isn't with me today again. Off away visiting the grandparents again. So it is school holidays. So hopefully Ella will be back next week for the Magic Round tips. But she has sent through her tips for this week, and I'll read those ones out read them out at the end. Very tongue twister, that one. All right, look, let's crack on. Let's get into it. Broncos and Bulldogs kick off Anzac Round, and that is the first game of the round. And look, these two sides, they're at probably different levels, aren't they? The Bulldogs, they're high flying. 6 wins in a row, 7 wins in a row, 6 wins in a row, I think, and 1 bye. So they are on top of the comp at the moment. Absolutely flying. The Broncos are in 5th spot. They had a loss last week against the Warriors in Golden Point. Reece Walsh, unfortunately, injured for this game, I should say. Kicked the ball dead in Golden Point extra time, and Luke Metcalf was able to slot the goal over from halfway. The Bulldogs, look, as I said, they are high flying, 32-0 against the Rabbitohs in the traditional Good Friday game. So the Bulldogs, as I said, they were flying. Last season, this game sort of probably gave them a little bit of momentum. It was played at the end of July. The Bulldogs won 41 points to 16. That too was up at Suncorp Stadium as well. If we take a look at the team lists, Jordan Ricky and Reece Walsh are out for the Broncos, and unfortunately Jack Todd has broken his arm again, and he is out of the Bulldogs side. The young man who made his debut a couple of weeks ago, scored a try last week, I'm going to say, or the week before. I think it was the week before, but unfortunately got injured in this game. He is out with that arm injury. So, pretty settled lineup for the Bulldogs. Dean Mariner comes in for Reece Walsh as Selwyn Cobbo goes back to fullback. So I'll be interested to see how he goes there. Look, I'm going to tip the Broncos in this one. Look, the Bulldogs are playing some fantastic football. I can see probably a little bit of an upset. Look, Ben Hunt, he had probably a worse game than what he thought he would have last week over there in New Zealand. He'll want to rectify that one. I just think the Broncos at home, they could be the first side to upset the Bulldogs, even though the Dogs got the win up there at Suncorp last year. So I'm going to tip the Broncos in that one. Look, Friday, 4 p.m, there are 3 games on Anzac Day, the 25th of April, and it all kicks off with the Roosters taking on the Dragons. Now, in these sort of games, especially this one between the Roosters and the Dragons, it doesn't matter where these two sides are on the ladder. It is always pretty much a close game. There has been some Golden Point games. There has been some games won by 2 points, I should say. But, however, in saying that, the game last year on Anzac Day, it was a game that the Dragons would want to forget. It was a 60-point to 18 victory to the Roosters. They will want to forget that one, that is for sure. So, look, different sides this year, both sides. Obviously, the Dragons have got some new recruits. The Roosters have lost some players from that game last year. So, some completely different looking sides. Unfortunately, Nat Butcher for the Roosters is out. Angus Crichton comes back, which is good to see. He missed last week's game through injury, so he is back this week. Interesting that Dominic Young has been dropped from this Roosters side. So unfortunately, Mark Nwanga-Nectawase will play wing. Robert Toy in the centres, Billy Smith as well back in the centres, and Daniel Tupou on the wing. So no Dominic Young, he will be playing reserve grade. James Tedesco, the captain and fullback, he has been pretty solid this year as well. Maybe he may get the New South Wales jersey in game number 1. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. For the Dragons, look, Clint Gutherson, he's been playing some good footy for the Dragons. This is his first Anzac Day game for the Dragons. And look, as I said, I think either team can win this game. They are pretty close games for this one. And look, it is an emotional day in the city as well. Beforehand, obviously the dawn service, and then the march, and then the game at Allianz Stadium. So expecting a big crowd there. I think servicemen and women get in for free. I think they still do that as a mark of respect to them. But yeah, I think it's going to be a big crowd there. They'll probably get close to 40,000, I reckon. Easy. I think the ground holds 40 or 42,000, so I think they will get a near full house public holiday as well. So look, I'm going to tip the Dragons in this one. I think the Dragons have just been playing a little bit better footy over the last couple of weeks. They had a good win against the Sea Eagles at Brookvale. They beat the Titans down there in Wollongong. They lost to the Eels by 1 point. The Roosters are a little bit up and down. They had that win really early on against the Panthers, but then since then have struggled a little bit. They had a good win up at Suncorp against the Broncos, but unfortunately the Panthers put 40 points on them last week. I just think, I'm going to tip the Dragons in this one. Excuse me. I'm going to tip the Dragons in this one to get the win, but I think it will be a close game. Over in New Zealand, the Warriors take on the Newcastle Knights, which should be a good game. The Warriors in 4th spot, the Newcastle Knights in 14th. Now, the Newcastle Knights, boy, they are struggling at the moment. 4 straight losses as compared to the Warriors, who beat the Broncos last week, as I just spoke about just before. Got smashed by the Melbourne Storm down there in Melbourne, but then 3 straight victories before that. So they are travelling quite well at the moment, the New Zealand Warriors, compared to the Newcastle Knights. Don't know what the Newcastle Knights can do to get out of this rut, but it's going to be something pretty difficult, I think. They just haven't settled on a halves combination. Kalen Ponga, in my opinion, has been a little bit quiet this year, and I think that's probably because all the expectation belongs to him, I guess. You expect KP to be the man of the match every game. He's got a lot of responsibility for this football team, and unfortunately I don't think he has been firing as much as what he would have thought he would have been. But Mitch Barnett, he plays up against his old club, so we all know what players playing against their old club like to do. They obviously like to get the win, and they step it up, fire up against their old club, so this won't be any different for him. Look, the New Zealand Warriors, they welcome back Chance Nickel-Clockster back to fullback, which is a great in for them. Just recently extended his contract for them until the end of 2027. Luke Metcalf, he kicked that penalty goal from 50 metres last week, so that'll give him confidence, that is for sure. Still missing James Fisher-Harris, but that has been a couple of weeks now for the New Zealand Warriors. The Newcastle Knights go into this game with the 5'8" halfback combination of Fletcher Sharp, Tyson Gamble. Pretty much the same sort of side that played last week. Big inclusion for them is Dylan Lucas, the second rower, which is a good in for them. Look, I think I will tip the Warriors in this game. I think just over there, they would have got the confidence from last week as well. They are playing some really good football at the moment, in fourth spot on the ladder. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be 5 losses in a row for the Newcastle Knights. Down there in Melbourne, sees the second place Storm take on the 8th placed Rabbitohs. Now, interesting stat about this one, the Rabbitohs have never won in Victoria. So since 1999, they have never won down in Melbourne. So can they break that hoodoo this weekend? Only time will tell whether they can or not, but it's a big ask. Wayne Bennett doesn't have the best of coaching records against Craig Bellamy either. So he doesn't have the best win percentage either. So always tough. I guess every coach has got their bogey coach, and I guess for Wayne Bennett it is Craig Bellamy. No Harry Grant for the Melbourne Storm, so Bronson Garlick goes into that hooking position. Other than that, it is pretty much a strong looking lineup for the Melbourne Storm. Jack Howarth unfortunately is out, and Tui Kamakamitha is out as well, so a few changes for them. Jack Howarth, the centre for the Melbourne Storm, sees Grant Anderson go into the centre there, Mr. Reliable Grant Anderson, and Kane Bradley comes into the wing position. For the Rabbitohs, Latrell Mitchell, he's moved again back to fullback, with people saying that is his best position, fullback. So a couple of weeks in at the 5'8" position, Cody Walker returns back to 5'8". Jaden Sullivan comes back from suspension into the halfback spot. So Latrell goes back to fullback. Now, unfortunately, that means Jai Gray goes to the interchange bench. Now, this could be a masterstroke because he's a pocket rocket, the Jai Gray, the 14 this week. So he could do some damage around the ruck with some tiring Melbourne Storm forwards. We'll just have to wait and see. So it could be a blessing in disguise. Ewan Aitken goes into the second row, having played centre last couple of weeks. But yeah, Jai Gray, he was leading the Dally M, could still be, but was leading it, as I know, for a few weeks. It's a bit of a different role for him this week, but it could be a masterstroke having him on the interchange bench there. Look, I'm going to tip Melbourne in this one. I just think they will be too strong. They, as I said, they have that good record down in Melbourne, and either at Melbourne or in Sydney, the Melbourne Storm have a good record over the Rabbitohs. The last time they played was last season. It was 28 points to 16. This last year's game down in Melbourne, it was 54 points to 20. So, look, I think still with those injuries to the Melbourne Storm, I think they will get the victory. Saturday sees only the 2 games being played, as there's 3 on Friday. It is a Queensland derby. The Cowboys take on the Titans at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. The Cowboys had the bye last week. The Gold Coast Titans, they went down to the Canberra Raiders 30 points to 20 at home. These two sides, well, how do you get a gauge on the Titans? They're sort of up and down a little bit. 3 straight losses now for the Titans, which is concerning for Des Hasler and his men. The Cowboys, 3 straight wins, including wins over the Raiders, Panthers and Rabbitohs, and then a bye. So, some pretty good form there. The Cowboys, they started off down near the bottom of the ladder, but they got those 3 straight wins and the bye, and now they find themselves in 9th spot. trying to get into that top 8 now. The last time these two sides played, it was 20-18 to the Titans. That was played on the Gold Coast. The last time at Queensland Country Bank Stadium, it was the Cowboys 35 points to 22. If we go to their team sheets, well, look, it's John Bateman returns. And John Bateman returns for the North Queensland Cowboys. Tom Dearden, captain and 5'8", is there as well. And another player who I've been impressed with is Jackson Purdue. So look out for him, young centre there, playing some good footy at the moment. There is talk for the Gold Coast Titans. Maybe David Fifita will play, but don't think he will. Look, I'm no doctor, but you never know. He could lace him up and be playing in this one, but my bet is probably not. He is named number 14, but stranger things have happened. It's just wait and see what happens on the day, I guess. Look, the Gold Coast, I can't really get a read on them. As I said, they play some good footy, and then they have lapses. I think North Queensland will be too strong at home for this one, so I'm going to tip the Cowboys. CommBank Stadium, 7:35 p.m. Saturday, the 26th of April, sees the Panthers take on the Manly Sea Eagles. Now, two sides that have probably, been struggling this year. I guess the Sea Eagles, 3 straight losses to the Dragons, Sharks and Storm. So some pretty fierce competitors there, the Sharks and Storm especially. They beat the Eels way back there at Brookvale the week that DCE announced that he'd be leaving the club at the end of this season. The Panthers, well, you wouldn't read about it, would you? They had the 5 straight losses, and then they came out last week against the Roosters and got a win and put 40 points on them. So maybe they have turned a corner. They still believe they can make finals. And look, you wouldn't write off a champion team like the Panthers, the 4-time premiers, would you? So just have to wait and see what happens about that one. But the Panthers at the moment find themselves in 15th spot. Not a position they would like to see themselves. The Sea Eagles are in 11th. The last time these two sides played was last season. It was 32 points to 22 in favour of the Panthers. It was 1 each last year. The Sea Eagles got a victory as well at Brookvale. Look, I think the Panthers, they had that win against the Roosters last week, so I think they will be too strong for the Manly Sea Eagles. Luke Garner and Mitch Kenny are out of this side. Mav Geyer, MG's son, he finds himself on the interchange bench, number 17, for his first NRL game this season, which will be good to see for the big fella, MG. So, another MG in Penrith colours running around. Isaac Tungo, he returns to the centre position, having been on the bench last week. Dylan Edwards at the fullback position, trying to hold on to his New South Wales spot. Tom Jenkins goes to the wing. Blaze Talangi still at 5'8". Nathan Cleary, captain. Luke Summerton comes in for Mitch Kenny. The big news for Manly fans is Tom Trbojevic is back. Unfortunately, though, Jake Trbojevic is out, and Toa Sipley is suspended as well. So, some big news there, especially with Tom Trbojevic back. Moves Lehigh Hopewadi to the wing. So Manly fans will be happy about that one. Jazz Tavanga goes to the lock position to replace Jake Trbojevic. Look, I think Penrith will be too strong for this one at home. Well, okay, CommBank Stadium, their home ground for a couple of seasons. I think just that form last week against the Roosters will give them confidence. And look, I think the Sea Eagles, they're just really struggling at the moment. So I'm going to tip the Panthers in that one. Raiders and Dolphins. So the Canberra Raiders, they have a home game Seems like they've been travelling around forever this season, 2025. They find themselves in third spot and probably staying under the radar, I think. They just have been playing some great footy. Hudson Young for them has been pretty good, outstanding, scoring tries, pulling off some big hits. They gone in with the same side that won last week against the Gold Coast Titans, so consistency as well. But look, this could go either way because both sides 3 straight wins, and these games are always close as well. The last 2 times that they have met, just lost my train of thought for a second there. The last 2 times these 2 sides have met, it's been a 1-point victory to the Raiders in both games. 26-25 last season at Redcliffe, and it was a 31-30 victory in Canberra against the Dolphins in 2023. So, look, this could be a really close game. News today about the talk of Jamal Fogarty going to Manly next season to replace DCE. Who knows where that one's going to go, but there is a little bit of talk there about that one. Just have to wait and see. Really like the way Corey Horsburgh is playing at the moment. He's trying to get a Queensland Origin spot. He had one previously a couple of years ago. He wants to get back to that arena. For him. Now, the player that the Canberra Raiders will have to watch is Isaiah Katoa at halfback. He's a young boy with an old head, I think. Just outstanding the way he controls the game, and his ball playing as well. So that definitely one player he'll have to watch. The Raiders will have to watch, and obviously the Hammer back there at fullback as well, along with Herbie Farnworth, who's been playing some good footy as well. There was talk that Max Plath wouldn't play, but he's been named in hooker. Francis Molo, he will make his club debut, having transferred from the St George Dragons, so he will make his club debut, being named at number 10. Look, I think I'm just going to tip the Raiders simply because they're at home. Nothing really else. If this game was played at Redcliffe, I may tip the Dolphins, but I think the simple fact that the Raiders are at home on a Sunday afternoon, I'm going to tip them. So the Raiders for me over the Dolphins. The last game of the round, Sunday, 27th of April, 4:05 p.m, sees the West Tigers, who certainly have been in the news the last 2 weeks now, against the Cronulla Sharks. The Sharks find themselves in 6th spot, the Tigers in 12th, not 9th, 12th. But this game at Leichhardt Oval, so Sunday afternoon, hopefully the sun is shining, the birds are singing, that Leichhardt Hill is full. People tell me it is the 8th wonder of the world. There was suggestions throughout the week that some plans for an upgrade have been shown. And look, the upgrade pitches look pretty good, I think. They've got the seats in the Tigers colours. They've got stands on both ends. They have kept the Leichhardt Hill as well, so that's good news. So hopefully they can get the funding across the line and get that done. So, look, these 2 sides played 2 times last season. It was the Sharks who got the last victory, 58 points to 6. The Tigers got a victory before that one, 32 points to 6. However, this season, probably the form guide of the last 5 games is pretty much the same. 3 losses out of 5, and 2 losses, I should say, for the Sharks, 3 losses for the Tigers, 3 wins for the Sharks, 2 wins for the Tigers. So, look, probably in saying that, the Sharks are playing a little bit better footy. They've had some tough competition against the Rabbitohs, Bulldogs, Raiders, Sea Eagles and Knights. So, look, I think this is a game that the Sharks will want to win and just keep on slowly heading up that ladder. They probably expect them to win, although this is a new look Tigers side. The big news for you Tigers fans and rugby league fans, I guess, is that Lachlan Galvin's back in the number 6 jersey for the Tigers. Only 1 week of reserve grade, and Jerome Luai goes back to halfback. And Adam Dewey goes back to the centre position. So, look, for the Sharks, this will be a great matchup. Terrell May up against Adam Fanua-Blake. So, Terrell May will be one of the players that the Sharks will have to worry about, I guess. Jareem Buller at the fullback position against William Kennedy. That'll be a good one there as well. Good clash of the halves as well. Galvin versus Trindle, Luai versus Hines. So, look, I think the inclusion of Lachlan Galvin at 5'8" will be a good boost for the Tigers, even though there were reports that the senior players didn't want him in the side, apparently. But Coach Benji Marshall has named him back in the side, so I guess you have to have your best players play each and every week, depending on whatever situation that is. So Lachlan Galvin is back in the 5'8" spot. Is it enough to get the victory over the Sharks? I'm going to tip the Sharks in this one. I just think they will get the victory in this one. Now, so just recapping my tips, I'm going to go the Broncos, Dragons, Warriors, Storm, Cowboys, Panthers, Raiders and Sharks. Now, Ella's tips for this week, I think we have 1, 2... Sorry, I'm just trying to count these ones. Three different this week. So Ella's tips are the Bulldogs, Dragons, New Zealand Warriors, South Sydney, North Queensland Cowboys, Panthers, Dolphins and Sharks. Look, thank you very much for listening to the Tipping Podcast. I really appreciate it. And as I said before, be game. Follow our tips if you want to. Ella's got 3 different to myself. So one of us might get 5. One of us might get 8. Who knows what will happen. So follow if you dare. But all thanks to Ashore Strata Reports on Instagram. Give them a follow. And also Buddy Oldman Masters Boxer on Facebook. Give him a follow as well. Proud sponsors of the Paracave Podcast tipping competition. Good luck in your tips this week. Results for the tipping competition will be posted on Monday, so stay tuned for that one. And look, even if you're not an eel, hopefully your team gets up. I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend with Parramatta not playing. It's a bit weird when your team has the bye, so see what happens. Maybe the wife might ask me to do a few things around the house. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'll be making sure that I do catch some rugby league as well. You can find this on Apple, Spotify. Please subscribe to that one. Follow the podcast on Instagram as well. I'd really appreciate the follow. The Paracave Podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.